Hi, everyone. It's me, Destiny, and I'm here with three fantastic women who you might recognize from this little kind of live reality game called Survival Challenge. I don't know if anyone's heard about it, except it's all that we're talking about right now in the LRG community. So I have with me tonight Grace, Megan, and Stephanie. How are you, ladies?
Better
Great. How are
now.
you?
Doing good.
Awesome. So let's go around the circle and we'll talk. And if you can just introduce yourself, say your live reality game history, and how you found out about Survival Challenge. Grace, we'll start with you.
All right, so my name is Grace. Survival Challenge was my first live reality game or online game. I was very new to this whole world. And then I found out about it because my brother Colin played in season 7 of Survival Challenge. So I actually went there last year and got to watch the whole thing firsthand, and then decided I wanted to play myself.
Megan, go ahead.
Awesome. Hey guys, I'm Megan. I'm from Boston. This was also my first live reality game experience. I played a couple online games in the past, and I knew a couple people who played in the game before and were on production in the season. So I think when they had some people drop out of the original cast and they were looking for new people, and someone reached out to me and was like, "Hey, would you be willing to do this?" I'm like, "Why not? I do crazy things every day. This can't be the craziest thing I've ever done." And that's how I ended up on Survival Challenge.
And Stephanie?
Hi, everyone. So, my name is Stephanie, and I am currently living in South Florida. I am definitely new to the Survivor live reality game world. This was actually the first game that I ever played. And in fact, I didn't get added to the cast until like a week before. So, I was a very last minute cast member. But it just so happened that I learned of this opportunity through a friend who's also involved. And actually, I have quite a few friends who are involved with Survivor Challenge. So I got the call very last minute, but it just so happened that I was already on my way there with some friends. So it just worked out perfectly. I literally said that day when I got that text message, I said, you know what? I think it's meant to be. Like, I think I am meant to play because I booked my ticket, and then 2 days later, I get this text message saying that, hey, there's an opportunity. And I actually thought about it the day before. I was like, imagine if they asked me to play, and there it goes.
I'm a firm believer in the universe telling us. So when random stuff comes in your mind, I always feel like you put it in the universe. So you're like making it happen. So you just made yourself play. So good on you. Put it in the universe, manifest it. Um, Before we get started on the full game, I'm just going to make a little announcement. As you see, you have three women of the game, and then myself on here, so four women on your screen. And this happens to be for the online reality games page and live reality games page, the first all-female podcast of a group of four or more. So we're making a little history over here. Thank you so much for Justin for letting us have this opportunity, and we're very excited to see and talk about this game. So I'm super excited to hear everything that you have. Live reality games are a new passion of mine, just kind of learning all about them. And watching you three play the game was so interesting. You guys played such a different game. It was a full scope. Nobody was kind of the same. So coming into it, you get there in this room and you're separated, and then you come out to this challenge. And Megan, can you tell us about your experience? Tell us about what John says. How does it start for you? Bring us in to back out there in Illinois.
Yeah, so I mean, the start was crazy. We were all kind of just standing in a field. We couldn't talk to anyone. So we were just kind of looking around at who was there. And it was funny, everyone around me, like, was all women. So I was like, oh my God, is this men versus women? You're trying to figure out like what the tribe makeup's going to be, what the challenges are going to be. But yeah, it just happened that all the women happened to be standing, except for I guess there were a couple that were on the other side, but we all seemed like we were together. And then John brings us all together. He sort of welcomes us to the game, welcomes us to the family, which was amazing. And then he sort of puts us in this situation where he's just like, grab 8 people, 4 men and 4 women, and like start the challenge, right? And I don't know what everyone else was thinking, but I was like, oh my God, what is going on here? Like, how am I supposed to pick 8 people? Also, like, I brought clothes that I wanted to wear in the lake, and those were not the clothes that I was wearing at that moment. And it was very clear that I was getting in the lake. So a lot of insanity there in those first couple minutes for sure.
I always think, and this is funny to me because I know nobody wants to like be very vocal in the beginning. You want to kind of be quiet and like, why weren't people like, hold on, let's take off our shoes and socks. We're going to be wet all weekend. Like, but nobody did. Everyone just, it was full
We didn't know
force.
it was going to be the rainiest 5 days in the history of ever. So
Ever. I try not to say that I was miserable because I know you guys, like my circumstances out there were significantly different, but I was miserable and I could leave. And so I could only imagine what as contestants you were going through. It was, I want to say, like, I think there was like 40 inches of rain accumulated over like a 2-week period in the area. It wasn't consecutive, so it wasn't like a downpour, but it was very wet. It was very cold, and it was the middle of July. And so it was very confusing
and
to
they
kind of
took
see.
our blankets when we checked in.
And they took your blanket, which I don't even know if they
No.
would have helped. It probably saved people from getting hypothermia, to be honest, because they were going to be soaked. I don't see
for
any
sure.
way that those could have been like preserved. So then, go ahead.
I was going to say I had a similar experience as Megan, like in the beginning, right when I first came in. For me, you drive in and then you have to go ahead and park, and you're like you're going 1 by 1 or 3 by 3 in the check-in station. And as soon as I pull my car up, my rental car, which I just happened to rent so that way it can stay there for X amount of days sitting in the parking lot. I go ahead and pull up my rental, and literally the first person that I see is Joe, which just happens to be someone that, although I had never met Joe, I've never spoken with Joe, I knew of Joe from a previous org. So immediately I'm sitting in my car and I see him and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the guy that, has played in another org that I played in. So for me, that was like at least I know one person in this whole fiasco, because it was scary. Like, I was very nervous. And then just as Megan said, from her side, it was like all women, I think, in that side. But for our side, it was mostly men, and I think it was like 3 or 4 women, if I'm not mistaken. And Morgan was one of myself. I can't remember who the other person, or I think there was one more person. I don't remember who they were, but it was very nerve-wracking because you had to stand there and like face each other. But other than that, you're right, Megan, like when they told us to come in and take our shoes off and stuff like that, or not even take our shoes off, just go, I made sure to take my socks and my shoes off because I was not getting them wet. And that is probably the reason why, if you notice in that challenge, I am literally like left behind. Like like they just leave me behind, but I'm sure we'll get to it. Bad start.
Grace, you said that this is your first one. So how did your start go? Were you overwhelmed? Were you just excited? How was your start to this?
Yeah, so mine was fairly similar. Like, on the drive down, I was like terrified the whole way because I was like, I have no idea what I'm walking into. So then I get dropped off and you do like your little check-in. I'm sad because I lose my blanket, and I brought a Snuggie, and I thought that was going to be so fun to have on the tribe, and they took my Snuggie from me. And then we all line up in a field, and I see that it's all girls, and already like my mind switches on so quickly into like game mode, and I'm like, okay, if I'm on a tribe of all girls, like, what's my alliance? Looking around, like, do I think I trust this person? Do I trust this person? And I'm like, okay, it's men versus women, already like trying to figure out what my plan is. So yeah, then they bring us all over, and we see that there are girls on the other side. So we're like, oh, maybe it's not men, women. And then John just goes straight in and is like, oh, are you ready for your first challenge? And I'm like, I already have so much adrenaline going that it just kicks up even more when we hear we're about to go right into a challenge. So then he explains the whole thing. He's like, does anybody have any questions? And you can tell, like, in everyone's mind, they're like, what are the tribes? Like, but nobody wanted to be the one to ask it. So we're all just like, no, we understand. And then we just like chaotically find our group. And I don't even remember exactly how that went about. It was like just the people that were around you, you kind of started in a group, and then we're like, hey, we need a guy, we need a girl, and then eventually found our tribe. And you're saying, shoes. I think pretty much everyone left their shoes on, except for I think
I didn't.
there's only one person I think who stopped and
Yeah,
took
I got
their
my shoes off, but
off.
not my socks. So
I
halfway.
got my shoes and my socks. And even when we were picking crews, as you were mentioning, even when we were picking tribes, like I made sure, because I knew Joe, like I knew of Joe, I was like, oh no, I'm going to be right next to him because that is the person that I think I'm going to, make sure that I am in a group with. So that was my first thought immediately. But yeah, you're right. Like I went ahead and took my shoes off, and that's probably what got me left behind. And I'm not a strong swimmer, so I clearly had to like swim my little butt across like half of a lake, a pond, excuse me, not a lake. But that's how I felt in my head.
Yeah,
It was
that
like,
felt really far too. That felt like I was swimming
much bigger in person.
Yeah.
It was crazy to watch it on, and just like you could feel the chaos, you could feel the confusion. There was such little instructions. You have Jake here who said, when we were brought over, I thought it was a tribe of all women and thought maybe I was supposed to know who they were? Question mark.
That
So
is true.
I think that's just a testament to one, how crazy this game is, because you can watch previous seasons and you still would have no idea what to do right here. Like there wasn't anyone who was like, I got it. This is what we do. Everyone had such a just kind of fresh start, and there was like an even playing field until you get into the social connections. So you build these teams from this crazy challenge of no instructions, and the first day of the game really is all of these reward challenges. And nobody knows, and you're one worlding it, and you're going through this experience, and you're getting to talk to everyone. What was your thought process? Who did you want to talk to? Who did you want to work to? How was this for you? Grace, we'll start with you again.
For me, I would say it was wildly overwhelming. The one world aspect like totally threw me for a loop. I was planning on like that first night just trying to get like really connected with like that initial group that we started with. And you could tell like the first night, even though they told us we were all one world, there was still like, it stayed pretty divided in the three tribes. Like there was that initial like, oh, let's get everybody's name, let's meet everyone. But it was still rather divided. So I think everyone was kind of like focused on staying with their own tribe because they didn't really know what we were going to be doing the next day, but nobody wanted to be the one person to stray from doing what everyone else was doing. So we just kind of stayed in our groups. And then on Thursday for most of the day, I think there was strategy talk happening. I didn't realize that. I felt like it was so fast paced with challenges when we're not even going back to our camps. It's just challenge, holding area, challenge, holding area. There's like little chatter in between, but again, not very like deep, meaningful conversations or a lot of strategy talk. It felt like just kind of some chit chat here and there. So.
And Stephanie, for you, you're nodding. Were you going, yeah, let's jump into strategy talk? Or you're like, no, let me go slow?
Oh no, I wanted to know. Immediately when we were in the first challenge, right, while we were together in our groups, I recall there was a moment that Joe, Katie, and I were running to get find out some names or how many folks are from XY state. I don't remember what it was. And right there, Joe literally is running fast paced with Katie and I, and he stops and he goes to Katie and he goes, you, us three together. And then he runs and I was like, oh, whoa, we're together. This is it. I was like, oh, okay. I trust Joe. So therefore, because I trust him because imagine I don't know anyone. So he just said this. I was like, all right, I guess he, knows that this is a group of three. I wonder what else is going on. So automatically that was for me, that first day while we, that on Wednesday, it was just I was in a group of three already. Solid three, apparently, with Joe, Katie, and myself. So I was excited because if you recall, as I mentioned, I got left behind or I wasn't swimming fast enough in that challenge. I was in the back. I was already, I don't know, I was the weakest in my group. So I was already concerned. I was like, this is such a bad start for you to come into a game. As soon as I come in, I look around and I see everyone, they're all fit and intimidating. I have to say, Megan, like, I thought you were a survivor. I thought like you were like, like I was like, oh man, this isn't, yeah, like I mean, Christina, like all these, especially the women, I just thought they were just like badasses that came into the game. So I was very intimidated, and I'm not a small girl, so and my swimming is not that strong. So I was like, okay, I'm already like the weakest in my opinion. So therefore I have to do whatever I can to step it up at that point. So yeah, there was some strategy, like just a little group formed. But other than that, I think in our group, there was some conversations of groups going on and people making connections. So I think that Wednesday, like we were already kicking it to gear.
Megan, I'm going to say, so when I first walked out there, I didn't go there for the day one. I went there for day two. And so when I was out there, or no, day three, when I was out there, the game was starting. Like it was game. And you're the first person I see when I walk out there. When I tell you, I texted and I was like, oh my God, they actually have, like, there's a real survivor out here. I was so set. Like I saw you and just your presence. I think that's a testament to you, though. Your presence is just so strong and you just have a confidence about you. And I was like, girl's a badass. Okay, girl, you do this. And you were my person that I thought was going to take it all from the moment I walked out on the field just by your energy. I was so convinced that this winner was already picked from you
Oh my
just.
gosh.
And I knew people there, and I still was like, she won. Y'all suck.
Well, that's hilarious because I feel like on day 3, I was not feeling confident at all. Like after, I didn't get picked at all in the schoolyard pick after the first day of rewards. We do a schoolyard pick for tribes. And I don't get picked. Like I'm the last one by myself standing there. And I was like, oh my God, this is so bad and also really embarrassing. But I'm glad I project confidence like that. I'm going to have to, work on that. But yeah, I feel like in day 3, I really didn't play with a lot of confidence because I just was like, I was like, I have no idea. I feel like I have no idea where I stand right now. Like, I'm not sure what just happened there. I'm not sure how how people were picking and whether or not I made any good connections. But yeah, I mean, the one world was crazy. That would not have been my preference. I'm really not that outgoing of a person in like a scenario where there are 20 plus people who are all, trying to have small talk and like get to know each other, which is like the most weird networky situation ever. I'm like, thought about that. I was really excited, like Grace said, to get to know the 8 people that were in my original, what I call the burrito tribes, because we were sleeping in a little burrito on the ground the first night. But everyone in my original burrito tribe was great. And I feel like, I got a chance to play with some of those people throughout the game. But I'm glad I looked confident to someone on day 3.
You definitely did. So we're seeing it. You're making these connections, or you're at least trying to, but everyone out there is nervous. And in the beginning of it, it's not like the weather's not that bad. Like it still was not the best, but it wasn't that bad. And you're not really going through the emotions of the hunger and the sleep deprivation yet. At this point, everyone's just excited to be out there and play the game. Are you looking at who you think is strategic? Are you making these mental notes of who you want to work with? Who needs to go first? Are you watching who's talking to who? Kind of walk me through your thought process of this beginning of the game and what you're thinking. Whoever wants to start, you're welcome to.
I'll let Grace go ahead. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I guess I can start. I did have ideas about who I wanted to work with. I've played a couple of online games before, which were super fast paced. So I was very afraid that I wasn't going to get enough conversations in early enough. And that's kind of a hard thing because like no one wants to talk about who they're going to vote out before they actually have to vote, because then there are names out there and people find out and it ends up bad. But yeah, I had originally wanted to work with Tiffany, with Benji, and with Pat, from my original 8, which is funny because that's not really who I ended up working the most closely with in the end. But I felt like I kind of wanted to align with some stronger players that were maybe like more outgoing than I was. because I think in general, socially, I'm not always the most outgoing person. So I felt like having those really strong players around me would be good. I also wanted to align with people who knew a lot about Survivor, because I am also like a very weak Survivor trivia person. So I wanted to kind of try to align with some of those people in the beginning.
Grace, what was your thought process? What were you looking at?
So yeah, I would say a lot of like that first night we were trying to kind of like getting to know our first tribes. And right off the bat, there was definitely like certain people that I clicked with first that I was kind of like, okay, I feel like as trusting as you can be with these people on that first night. So there was definitely a couple people that I clicked with, and we kind of had like a little group, kind of assuming that we weren't going to end up going to tribal at all with those first groups of 8 that we had. But we kind of had an idea of, if there are a swap and I'm with this person, like I feel good about them, or if we were to go to tribal, this is kind of who my group would be. But yeah, I would say I definitely found myself just being like hyper aware of like just always looking and visualizing like conversations that were going on, seeing pairs that were splitting off and going places, who seems comfortable with one another, who's talking to a lot of people, who's kind of laying back, just like, because we're all at a camp with 24 people. So it's like you don't necessarily have time to have a long conversation with each person. So all you have is these like initial instincts of seeing who all is where, talking to who. So yeah, I would say that definitely kind of like clicked in right at the start of just looking who's talking to who and doing what. Just trying to take it all in and be prepared for whatever's next, because we were clueless.
And then let's fast forward a little bit. So you have your kind of game strategy going on, and I think that going into your first tribal council, there has to be this sense of like, do I actually know what's happening? Or do I not? Like, there's always a chance that you don't know, and the vote is you. And I've always said it, like, if you think you're safe, like, you're not actually playing the game. Something is wrong. So let's talk about your first tribal council. You guys kind of all went at different times here. So let's talk about the first time you walked in and you get to see this amazing setup of what it is. What are your thought process? What are you thinking?
I was going to say Stephanie has to go first, because
I have to go
tribe,
first like 2 or 3 times because so I would say that, if I could just preface by saying that in the schoolyard pick, so right in day 2, that Thursday, we had our schoolyard pick. Our tribe, the Halata tribe, and I don't know if I'm saying the name correctly, we, as I'm sure you can all see, we all pretty much picked each other. I was the last member of the original group that was picked. And then Stu was the only male left. So he came onto our tribe. So from that moment, I felt very, very down. I felt like, oh, wow, I'm in the bottom. Clearly, this shows I'm the last one picked from our group. I wasn't thinking that, oh, wow, we should have picked different folks. I mean, why would we all want to be together? I was like, okay, well, we have Stu. Maybe, at surface level, it's like, okay, maybe he can possibly be a vote. If anything, those were my thoughts. But what was occurring was that I was building relationships with folks, right? So one person in particular that I felt like I was very close to was actually Jamie. Great vibes, great personality. I mean, I just instantly, like, I don't know. I just felt like we had this connection. And I really enjoy him, and whomever, if you know him, you know that his personality is big, and he's very vibrant. So I definitely had that connection. I didn't speak much with Landon. With him and I, it would just be like a touch and go, like, hey, I know we haven't spoken, but something like that. With Morgan, very little conversations with Morgan, despite that. Her and I were like, her, myself, Joe, especially her and I, like, we would be up at night together. I'm trying to keep her warm. We're trying to keep each other warm. And you know what they say, like, when you sleep next to the person, maybe, like, those are the folks that you're working with. But it just so happened that it took a little bit for us to have those conversations. So I felt like the folks that I felt really good about was Katie, Joe, and myself, as in my mind, as like, okay, we're 3. But then also I feel very comfortable with Jamie. And then also, like, I felt good with Christina as well. It was like, okay, I like the girls a lot, but I just don't know about Morgan. That's where my mindset was at that time. And then when Stu came in, it was like, okay, now we have Stu just in case. Like, let's see what happens. But so at that point, I'm thinking, hopefully Stu is the vote. But if you recall, like we had this whole, I think it was like we had we had an auction, I think it was. I can't recall what it is, like one of those, I can't recall what it's called, where Jamie and I had to go ahead and bid for items. So we left together. I believe it was Joe and Morgan, if I'm not mistaken. They went together and did like this activity, and then Stu, Katie, and Christina stood behind. So once we came back, one of the twists was that we were able to, I believe, like for some bucks, we were able to know if anything happened in the camp, right? And we didn't take it. Jamie and I said, you know what, let's try to build trust. Let's not take it. So there was some doubt there that apparently it seemed like Katie, Christina, and Stu weren't really coming forth with what happened there. So in my head, there were some doubts about, are they being truthful or not? So, or are they working together? So in my head, I'm thinking, you know what, like, who knows? It could be me. I was the weakest person. I am not as athletic. Like, at that time, especially when you're in a tribe, you want to keep your tribe strong in the beginning. Right? So I kind of felt like I was in the chopping block if they were to work with Stu, bring in Stu, which, it turns out that wasn't the plan, because shortly afterwards, right before we went to tribal, we were able to speak amongst each other, and Stu became that first vote. So that's how it went for us. So I wasn't comfortable at all. Like, I didn't feel comfortable. I didn't know really like what. I knew I was at the bottom, but I knew I had to do something. I just didn't know. So I wasn't very comfortable at all. But Stu was the vote. Unfortunately, he was a great guy, but unfortunately, he was slop screwed there.
He definitely was, I want to say, like, the nicest human being.
Yeah,
He was
for
there.
sure.
If you watch the episode or you watch the live stream, you got to see he was there to greet every single player who was eliminated from the game. He was incredibly, like, just his spirits were bright. He made being the first boot an incredible experience where he still, like, was a part of the game, but in a respectful way. And I have so much props for him. I don't know if I would have been able to do that. I think I would have been so petty and mad. But it was his fault. He was on the tribe that I call a whole lot of drama, because it did have almost all of the drama in the game until a little bit later, right? So Chris is asking a question for you. We'll get to this. And he says, was there anyone you were surprised didn't pick you in the draft? Stephanie, your face has it all. So let's go with you first.
I would say that I felt as if I wasn't as surprised, but I thought that I was going to get picked before Morgan for some reason. And I just felt like people mentioned like, oh, they haven't really spoken with Morgan. And they didn't feel very connected to Morgan in the beginning. So I felt like, oh, maybe I'll get picked, maybe fifth or fourth. Maybe the girls will pick me. And then I realized at that moment that, oh, I guess Morgan is just not speaking game with me, and she is speaking game with other people, because there must be a reason why she was picked before me. In that moment, that was my mindset. And then it was confirmed later on that Morgan did have some she was building her relationships with some other folks, and I'm sure we'll get to that. So yeah, I was surprised about that. I didn't know I was that low. I mean, I knew it, but I wasn't like, oh, okay, because I've been speaking more to these folks. But okay, I understand. Got it. I know where I stand.
Yeah, I definitely had a couple of people that I was hoping would pick me as well. I think, like, I know I'm not that outgoing of a person, so I wasn't surprised at a lot of people, but I thought there were like two people that I thought might have picked me. One was Benji. I didn't realize how close he and Mandy were, and that was like they were clearly a lot closer than I knew at that time. And the other was Tiffany. But yeah, other than that, I wasn't super surprised. It seemed like there weren't that many people who were like picking people outside of their groups, which I think probably would have actually been smarter for all of us to do. But I don't know. That was a hard situation. So
Yeah, in my group, it kind of seemed like both of the other tribes from the first night were kind of sticking with a lot of people in their own groups. And the people from my first night were like, oh, we don't necessarily want to go that route and we're wanting to pick different people. So that's why I was getting kind of nervous throughout the schoolyard pick because I was second to last picked. So like as it's going on, each person is going and I'm like, would they pick me? Would they not? So there was a couple people just like in my group that I had gotten closer with the first night that I was kind of hoping would pick me. And I actually really wanted to get on the Fala tribe when I first saw that group getting together because like Jake Miller and Caitlin, I had talked to a fair bit the first night and I saw that both of them were on that group. But then like no one else from my tribe was getting picked. So I'm like, maybe I don't want to be on that one. So yeah, there were a couple people that went by. And then Kelsey, I had also gotten really close with the first night, but I think we had also kind of become like a pair really quickly. So I don't think she wanted to put like a target on herself by picking me right off the bat. And then I think Chris was the one who picked me as we got down to the end. And he was one that I was like, at that point, just grasping at straws, hoping somebody from my first night tribe would pick me.
I think this face says it all right here. And I'm going to show you a screen. This face says it all at this first tribal council. And you're like,
oh, sure was.
oh, oh.
I sure was. I didn't know what was going down. I really didn't. I thought, yes, that was going to be the vote, but I wouldn't have been surprised because our tribe had so many personalities. Like everyone was, there was a lot going on and folks that I wasn't unsure of, especially because, as Grace mentioned, like when you're kind of second to last, you're thinking, wow, I'm really down there. So it could either be me or the other person. So that definitely is, that's what occurred. And unfortunately, yeah, that was my face.
Stephanie, were you also at the bottom of the schoolyard pick? Was that just like a bad omen for all of us?
It must have been. We look, we're all here. We're the bottom of the schoolyard pick. It must be for
yeah,
reason.
we gotta rewatch that, see what the actual order was.
So let's fast forward to how you guys can say you're at this bottom of the schoolyard pick.
Yeah.
So what ends up happening is the craziest twist. I was not prepared for it. There is a competition and everyone is competing for it, and you're competing not only for a reward for your tribe, but you're also competing for immunity on your individual tribe, because what ends up happening is you go into it's a joint tribal council and all three tribes are going into tribal. And I know we skip a ton, but this is really the part where it's like, what the heck? And so I personally think that all three of you ladies are safe until this next twist comes into it. Grace, can you tell us what this next twist is?
Yeah, so the next twist that they explained to us was that before we get to the actual vote, all three tribes get to vote one person on both of the opposite tribes that's going to get individual immunity. And before we even get to that, they kind of just open up the floor for people to make a case for themselves if they're feeling nervous of why they deserve that individual immunity then.
Worst twist ever. Worst twist ever.
It is a hard twist because what ends up happening is these players who have been on the bottom and, they've been fighting for their lives, which was really hard to watch. It was very hard to see, like Holly, who was literally fighting to be in this game because she just felt like she was on the bottom for so long. And so to see the underdog be safe and to see everything else kind of fight for it. But then the people who you also don't want to leave ended up getting like the brunt end. and you're all in this one situation and you can't talk to each other, and like no big plans can come and form because you're sitting right next to each other. So in that scenario, now that you've, I'm sure, have relived it 1,000 times over and over again, and you've replayed these memories, what would you do different?
Oh boy. I have a lot of thoughts.
A big question.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Megan, you can
First,
start.
I just want to give major props to Holly because, first of all, like, she was supposed to be the first vote out in Fala. And honestly, like what she said in her final tribal about her attitude being so great and her like being such a good person to have around camp, like that's the reason that we kept her in the game. And I was just super impressed with her game. So I was very happy for her to be able to continue on the game because I knew she really wanted to be there. But I think like in all the times that I've played this over in my head, so she immediately stands up and gives the first pitch for individual immunity. And I'm looking at everyone else in our tribe and I'm like, guys, like one of us also has to pitch for individual immunity. Otherwise, she's just going to get it and like we're going to be screwed, right? So I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to have to pitch because like of the people that are remaining, I like have the best case for people believing that I'm on the bottom. But like, I really wish I had given a way different pitch in that moment. Because I think maybe I could have gotten more people to vote for me because it really was like, as soon as Holly got that individual immunity, I was pretty sure it was going to be me. So it was really like a choice about who you wanted to play the rest of the game with, me or Holly. I just wish I had given a better pitch in that moment and probably like played a bit harder the few hours earlier. Because we also knew if Holly got immunity in that challenge that we were going to have to vote out one of our 5. And so I was trying to get people to have conversations about who it was out of the 5 that was going to go. But like no one wanted to have those conversations, right? Because they were just like, we're just going to beat Holly in this challenge and then it's going to be fine. We're not going to have this conversation. And I was like, guys, no, we need to have this conversation. So I really wish I would have pushed harder in those hours previous.
Grace, what about you? What would you have done, approached a little bit different? It was like the first time your tribe had even gone to tribal, so you didn't even get to kind of know where anyone's lines were. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there was one person who was like not. There was one outlier, wasn't it? Wasn't like a 3-2-1.
Right.
On your tribe, like the lines seemed like there was one person who was kind of not with a bunch of people, at least from previous.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, what? It was Alex, right?
Yes.
I think so. What was your thought process? What do you think you would have done differently going into that, considering this is your first tribal council?
Yeah, so that I probably would have just tried to start with strategy talk much earlier in the day because it was hard since kind of that Wednesday, Thursday for most of the day. We were all kind of in this limbo phase of not really knowing who our tribes were. But then like in my case for our tribe, like you said, it was our first tribal. So we had been winning challenges all day. And then we go to the holding area and we're all just kind of like, hooray, we did it again. Good work, everyone. And like no one's breaking off because we don't have that same like sense of urgency for going to a tribal. So for us, it was hard when it came time to like make our pitch of if we needed individual immunity. None of us, well, I mean, I guess some of them did, but none of us really had a strong enough idea because like no lines had been drawn. I feel like a lot of times going to tribal is where you kind of really learn your place on your tribe, where alliances are, and we hadn't experienced that yet. So we were just kind of like thrown into this wild experience before we really had a chance to talk much about it. So it was hard, I think, for me to make any sort of pitch because I wasn't familiar enough with where tribal lines stood. So I guess maybe I should have spoken up there, but I don't know that I would have had a strong enough case because I felt pretty good with sort of that alliance that we had put together. Because let's see, in our group, we had 4 blue, 3, I forget which color, but it was 4-3-1 was the split. So that's what so many people out of the game are like, you were on the 4, you had the majority. And I'm like, 4 is not a majority. We needed one more. And I knew with our 4, we weren't going to get just one more person to come over because I was like, nobody's going to do that. So we kind of tried to create this 3-3. That way we would have an even split and nobody would feel like they were on the bottom. And then we kind of had 2 that we were targeting. At least that was my plan. There was a whole nother plan going on that I never heard about, which was me. But yeah, it was kind of a crazy experience going into that tribal, not knowing at all who felt tight with who. So it was a blindside for sure. When I saw my name come up the first time, I was like, well, that can't be good because I didn't have much of an inkling that was going to happen. Obviously, I don't feel like certain at all in my position. There's always that hesitancy, but yeah, it was a surprise.
So for me, I think my experience was very different because we went to tribal, I think 3 times before that. So I definitely knew where lines were crossed and where everyone kind of stood. Especially I found out during the course of the game what relationships there were in that tribe. So going into the game, going into that challenge, I recall it was like, okay, it was down to 5. So it was Landon, Joe, Christina, Katie, and myself, if I'm not mistaken, right? 5. And at that time, I recall that we were just trying to ensure that Landon didn't have immunity at that time. And he didn't. It was Katie that won it. So once we get to tribal and they present that twist, I thought to myself, I was like, oh, this is going to be an issue. One of the reasons why is because I had an opportunity that same, like an hour before. I already had a clue to the idol. So I was literally like searching for this idol, like high and low. Joe's like, hey, Steph, we got to find the idol. We got to find the idol. We share that we have some clues. And I literally like scratch myself up. I am doing everything I can. So one of my regrets is like, okay, 1 is not finding the idol. And then noticing that Landon is looking for the idol as well. So then I'm trying to say, oh, he doesn't have it. Katie and Christina think he has it. They're like, no, he doesn't. So there was this whole confusion. Does Landon have an idol? How many idols does he have? He had some. I mean, there was a lot of things going on in our tribe because Landon was clearly on the out from the previous votes. And I wasn't as close to Landon because the people that he was close to was Morgan, Jamie, who were voted out previously. So I wasn't very close to him. And then realizing while I was speaking to, right before we were supposed to vote, while speaking to, I think, Christina, I see Christina and Katie, like they're clearly a duo. I get that. And then I'm speaking to Christina and Christina goes, hey, I can't vote Joe. And I was like, what? When did this Christina and Joe thing? So I was totally like left for a spin. I was like, wait, if Joe is with me and Katie, but I see Katie with Christina, that means that Christina's with Joe because she won't vote for Joe. So there's something going on there. And then also that Katie and Christina are close. So it pretty much leaves so it seems like Joe is kind of safe, right? So it kind of leaves Landon and I know that Landon is kind of in the out. So I'm thinking, okay, I think I'm good as long as Landon doesn't win immunity. And then we get to this twist, which, by the way, I know some folks have like mixed feelings about the twist, but I actually love the twist as a viewer for sure. Like I think, oh my God, haha, dramatic. But as a player, I did not. So at that moment, I feel like the only regret that I have is in regards to the relationships that I had built. I think if I would have built stronger relationships with those folks, perhaps I would have had a chance. But there were some relationships that were there. So and I'm sure it's been discussed before. But just as an example, like I didn't know Megan. Apparently Megan and myself, we played in the same org. I didn't know Megan. The only person that I recognized was Joe. So when I was in the tribe,
Joe is also the only person I recognize, by the way. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, like I didn't recognize anyone else. So I wouldn't. And then I found out that Katie knew Joe. So I was like, oh, that makes sense. I found that that out in the game. I didn't know until Joe told me, and he's like, oh, I shouldn't have said anything. And I was like, oh no, this is good information. So I go to Katie, I'm like, hey, I think I know you. I didn't know her. So, then it turns out that Joe knew Christina. So it's like those connections, I didn't know about those connections. The only connection I did know was Joe. And at that time, even though I had like some connection kind of with Katie informal, she wasn't working with me. She was working with Christina. So it wasn't, it was, I feel like at that time, almost like when we go ahead and they review the votes and they reveal that, not the votes, the who wins immunity, and it turns out to be Landon after I gave my speech, which wasn't really good. I was like, why would they give it to Landon? Like, Landon is competitive, he's strong, I kind of felt like
I just want to give spur of the moment speeches like K-Woo sometimes.
Right?
Like, I was like, why couldn't I just stand up and give a phenomenal speech?
Right? So I really felt like Landon did a great job at giving his speech. And not only that, Landon did a lot of work even before that. Like, Homeboy was, there while we were in our holding areas, like he was communicating with people and he was talking to folks. So those are the things that he was doing. And I think it really gave him the opportunity for folks to vote for him. So I think it was good on him. I have no regrets that I went out that way. I just, I feel like I had an opportunity. I could have built better relationships. I had an opportunity to get an idol. Maybe I could have gotten Joe, Landon, and myself to vote out Christina. In my head, I said Christina and Joe are tight. It wasn't that way. I think him and I were a little tighter, perhaps. But yeah, so that's my only regret, I would say, but not really. I think it was a good twist. It was fun to watch as a viewer, not a player, not so much.
Do you think that if there was a chance to not have that you wouldn't have been the vote? Do you trust where you were at in your game that had those players not been safe, that you for sure would have made it to the next round? I know that's a really hard question. It's a very loaded question, but perception is like 9/10 of the game, right? So do you perceive where you're at in the game and the alliances that you are in, with the advantages that were in play and everything else that was going on, that you would make it to the next round?
Yeah, I'm pretty certain I would have made it to the next round. We were gonna vote Holly for sure. It made sense. Like, we were a 5-strong alliance. I don't think she had broken that at that point. So I'm pretty certain I would have made it.
Grace, what about you? I know that's probably the hardest question for you to be able to answer because this is going to be the first time you went to tribal. Do you think that you go into that and you have it?
So like I said, I kind of felt good with the group that I had. And honestly, I don't think that the immunity ended up playing a huge role in how that played out for our tribe. Because I think Chris and Alex were the two that kind of spoke up about needing immunity. And then Devin ended up getting it, which was kind of a surprise.
Can someone tell me how Devin got that immunity? Like,
I don't know.
I was shocked.
The second he got that, I was like, okay, so he's friends with everyone on the other tribes. So, like, I was so concerned when I saw that because I was like, he didn't even have to speak and he got immunity. I don't know how this happened.
So from outsider perspective, what the whisper was is because he was the first person to walk away, was seen walking away, that people assumed that he would be targeted very early. That's what the perception was. So I don't know if that's what kind of came through, because obviously from that to then there's a ton of things that happened, but that was like the logical whisper of it. And then I think a lot of Fa'ala tribe, as Kevin is saying, voted for him just because why not?
Yeah, I think we were all kind of confused by that one. So like I said, I think there was a plan to vote me at our first tribal earlier. I still don't know the full timeline of when that happened. But no, that was definitely, our tribe was so pissed going into that tribal because we were like, we have won all day. We earned this immunity. Like, it's so unjust for us to be going to tribal. So definitely my tribe was not a fan of that tribal. Me especially. Because I would be now, like, knowing where I was on that tribe, I would be so interested to see if I made it through one more, Like then with the swap, like I have no idea where I would have ended up at that point. But yeah, I'm not sure that actually ended up making a huge difference because it sounded like they already had that plan in play.
Okay.
I think.
So,
Oh,
go, sorry, Stephanie. Go
oh
ahead.
no. To answer your question, I agree. I mean, I also feel that if that twist wasn't there, yeah, I think my position was good in the tribe. I just think that Landon would have been the vote for us. Um, you know, I strongly believe that. I do strongly believe that, but I also feel that it was it's your social game, right? Like I put myself in a position where I didn't want to be the person that was like right at the top, the top of the chain or whatnot. I wanted to be in the middle. So I remember me picking myself up from being in the low, the second to last picked, and trying to work my way at least to be in the middle. And at a point, if you watched it, you know that I was myself, and I think Joe, we were at the middle. And I would say I don't know why they voted for Landon, maybe because he did seem like he was in the outs, especially after everything that was happened. And he pointed out, he's like, there's two pairs here, like break up a pair, and that makes perfect sense, right? So, and I was pegged for as a pair with Joe at that time. So I can understand why that happened. But yeah, like I think if the game was a little different, that twist wasn't there, I probably would have still been in the game. Not right now, still there, but I would have gone further in the game. But everyone that was there, they're great players. Like they did amazing. So I have no regrets on my end. Absolutely not.
I must say, watching Halada from our perspective on that tribe was hilarious because since we hadn't been to tribal all day, the entire day we had been all like, kumbaya, we're a family, go us, and just like having a great time all hanging out. And then we get there and you guys are like calling each other out and we're like, oh, there's some drama here. I remember, I think I leaned over
family.
like, I think Kelsey was next to me and I was like, this feels like when you're over at your friend's house and their entire family is arguing and you're like, should I be here? Should I not? Like,
It was my favorite part to watch, not gonna lie. I liked the sass. But this is also, and it's probably gonna bring back memories for you ladies, but here is the photo of you walking up, and I think this right here is a testament. I mean, at least I'm like, look at these three powerful women up here. But Stephanie, your body language specifically, I think, speaks worlds, because what I got to see from you this whole time is you were always worried about other people. And I think this even says it here, like you just went out, you weren't anticipating going out, but rather than being like in your feelings, you're consoling Megan, who you didn't have any contact with throughout the day up to this point. And I think that's just a testament to these games in general, about how you can make lifelong friendships, you can create these form bonds, because let's be real, if we're all willing to go camp out willingly in the woods for 7 very rainy days, we all have to be a little off our rocker, right? Like there's not actually $1 million. So kudos to you ladies for just kind of like doing the dang thing when there's so many people who wouldn't do that. And I have, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm like, I have another photo here. It's a little blurry, but it'll also show you just like the amount of, and you just seem like you're not shooting daggers. You're not trying to trip her. You can tell like you're truly cheering on these people who you're out there with. Even when you're competing against them, like as much as you're going against them head to head, I always like, I want to see you do well. I want to vote you out, but I want to see you do well. Like, so how was that camaraderie for you? How was it? Just kind of the support that was out there. You guys were going through the elements, like things, the rain, the tornado warning. Like there legitimately was a tornado like 40 miles from where you guys were at. Not that you weren't safe, everyone kept you safe, but still that's intense. How was that? How did you get through it? Let's talk about the people.
Well, I mean, I got through it. Art, I get it, like a whole lot of drama, but we were so like, we had so many good moments at camp. We were just, like this family, that we bickered and fought, but at the end we were like, we're tight. But I would say that really the people were the ones that helped us like get through it. Especially like in the beginning, we had great relationships, like, and we tried to form those things. It was challenging. I have to say, one of the challenging things that I found out playing a live reality game, and I wasn't sure at the time if all of them were like this. Like, I felt that I wish I had more time to make connections with folks. I wish I had more time to talk to them and actually get to know them. We were going back and forth to tribal, and whenever we were in a space, like we were around other people. So it was I had a feeling of, I just have to, I want to build relationships with them. And we tried to do the best that we could and build relationships and speak to them individually. So a lot of times we were doing a lot of encouraging. We were encouraging each other. We were, good job, motivating each other. And even at the time where I said, I'm not a strong swimmer, they were like, no, you got this, you can do this. And we were motivating each other. But one of the things that I feel like my takeaway is, oh God, yeah, even there, like we were
Another
motivating each
example
other.
of you guys just being
So
motivated.
That's an example. Like, I remember Katie couldn't like chew down hers, and I was like, do this for Quinn, do this for yourself. We were all motivating each other. So that was nice. But yes, I would say that that's one of the parts that I enjoyed. I do wish that I would have gotten to know or have more conversations with them in the game and getting to know them. I just think that our tribe kept going to tribal, and we just didn't have that opportunity as much as I would have hoped.
Before we go back to, we're going to come back to this because you keep bringing up you're not a strong swimmer. And so the part that we didn't talk about in this, you do one of what I think is the most, Kevin pulled it off too, but one of the most sneaky little things in the game. And not only does it get you some sympathy points, you might not have made it seem like you were drowning as much as Kevin did, but you threw yourself into a pond carrying sticks. How did that play? Did people know you were doing that? Did people know you had to? No.
I literally, Destiny, I literally went the first day, as I was telling you all, like, I almost, like, I'm here swimming and I'm just like, I'm not a strong swimmer. I could barely make it. Immediately, I'm pegged as like, not a strong swimmer. So that's a problem. When we do the reward challenge, I'm still not a strong swimmer. Like, it's literally, there was so much swimming there. I swear, the joke is 2 lakes, 2 ponds, whatever it was. So when we were doing that fire challenge, Katie and I were together, and the clue that I received, or the clue that I received was, if I dropped the fire in the wood in the water, then I would be able to get a clue of where the idol was. So, but only Katie and I can do it. So I had to make, Katie's a strong.
That's what I'm wondering. I'm like, why wasn't Katie like, no, have her, I'm going in the pond?
He was, but the problem is that I had to get this clue, because you never know what was going to happen, right? So literally Katie goes and gets wood from from like the sandbox, and I'm like, okay, do you have it? All right, I'm going to get the wood from the other side. She's like, we don't need it right now. Are you sure you can do it? Are you sure? They're like questioning me, and I'm like, no, I got this. I got to do this. And I go ahead, and I'm just like, I know I can't do this. I was like, I can't do this. And literally, I can swim, you all. Like, I can. But the challenge is, I can't swim with sticks. So I already knew that I wanted to drop the stick. So I go ahead and like, hey, I'm kind of dropping it. And then turns out that, like, I'm like, I kind of, I drop it a little bit. And then I'm realizing, shit, like, these freaking sticks are so heavy. There's no way anyone can swim with these. So then it starts getting like, okay, I really can't freaking, I wasn't going to get them anyway. So I got my clue and went back over there, and they were just like, oh, we got the fire. Yay, we won immunity. I was like, yes. Everything worked out. It was good.
So here's my favorite part.
I look like a beaver. Your girl's like a beaver out there. I was trying.
And I was like, I don't understand.
Why would they let me go out there? They should have held my hand. But no, I was determined. I was going to get that clue, which I never found the idol, but whatever. I'm sure in the video it's going to be right there. And I'm going to be like, ugh.
And I must say, Stephanie's performance doing that, I feel like, was so much more convincing than Kaywoo's. Everyone in the audience is like, poor Kaywu, he's dying. And all of us in the game are like, Kayla's an incredible swimmer. Like, what is this? What is happening?
Exactly.
Like,
I think
I
at that
off the
point,
bat.
everyone on our tribe, I think, knew that he had that clue.
Yeah, and I
also.
think
So I
Alex
don't think
told
he
us
was trying to
after
hide
that
it.
was a clue that they had gotten, but we were like, what is happening to Kaywu? Like, he's a good swimmer. Why is he struggling with this?
I really needed those sticks too. That was the problem.
I've said it. I was like, y'all's tribe should not have won. Like, but the Fa'ala tribe went like left and right versus up and down, and Kewu ruined it for you. He didn't block your fire, and he just ruined it. He ruined it to then win the game. It was like a
It was great for
self-sabotage.
us.
It was
We
funny
needed
because
it.
I didn't realize everyone who had those clues did the sabotage except for me. I think I was the only one with one of those clues in my hand that didn't do the sabotage. Which is
Nobody on
crazy.
my tribe did. I forget. I know Alex had it, and he chose to sit out of that challenge because he was like,
Okay.
I ain't doing this. We've been winning all
Okay,
day.
I'm glad there's someone else because I was like, I can't believe all these people did this. Why?
Listen, we were losing, and I still did it. Like, we were going back to back Chicago, and I was like, I still gotta go for it.
There was a very clear vote on your tribe, though, because I think right before this competition happens is when Jamie literally goes, "I can make fire, but I'm not gonna make fire. My back is tired. Y'all do something." And I was like, "Oh, Jamie, I love ya. Make damn fire."
Rightfully so. He said, "You know what? You guys are all on your own. You burned me. We left him out of a vote. It was intense. Rightfully so. He felt betrayed. I completely understand. I totally get him at that point. And unfortunately, that we went ahead and we kicked butt and we did it. It was a proud moment for us. I know it, and I think Jamie was kind of like, okay, you guys got it. I get to be safe. So it was good. But yes, right before that vote, that challenge, there was a lot of turmoil with us. Jamie got left out of that Morgan vote, and again, like that was a large shift. It was like it was supposed to be Christina, and Joe and I, we flipped and we voted Morgan. And the decision in my head to do that and kind of like, unfortunately, not be upfront with Jamie about it was because I felt like they were closer to Morgan than what I was to them. So I felt like, you know what? Morgan's not really speaking game to me like that, or the way that I felt comfortable with her. So it was really, to me, it was like, I rather stick with Christina because at least she's speaking game to me and she's there. And come to realize I didn't know how strong of a connection Morgan and Landon had, which apparently in the challenge that we had with the water, filling up the little water bottles, it turns out that, Landon says straight up to Morgan, he goes, "Morgan, I did not vote for you." And literally, like, the other tribes are next to us. And I was like, oh, sugars. And I'm right there and I'm hearing them and I'm just like, oh, so they are close. So I was like, wait a minute. I'm in the outs here. So that we just had a lot of things going on. And I think that really caused some tension. And unfortunately, by that time, it was like, it was irreparable. Like we couldn't repair it at that point. So yes, there was a vote.
I think the best part about it, where you're saying, hey, all this happened, we can't repair it, after the game is over. And this is part of what Survival Challenge has a little bit different than other live reality games, at least that I've been a part of. There's this big like end of game celebration. You all have your, like, there's camaraderie, you're talking, you're hanging out, you're kind of hashing everything out where you're like, why did you do that? But at least from my perspective, again, obviously I was just a watcher. I wasn't in the game, so I didn't have the real raw emotions. But it seems like everyone kind of, you're like, it's a game, we figured it out, you're stupid, don't do it next time, but like, there's your one, and you kind of move on from it. Are you still friends with some of these people in the game? Are you still building bonds with these people? How has that happened for you? So Grace, you didn't come in here knowing anyone. How are you doing now building these relationships? Are you still talking to people?
Yeah, I mean, I still talk to, we have like our big group chat that we'll randomly message into, and I still have people from my initial tribe. I still talk to Kelsey like most days. So I would definitely say, like, sure, that night that we got voted out, it like stung a little and going into like the next day. But then like I so quickly got over it and was like, it's a game. And then also like Tamunga went one right after another, right after they voted me out. So I was kind of like, well, screw you people.
You're like, karma's a bitch. No.
I'm like, oh wow. But no, there was not actually like any hard feelings. I think it turned out to be like one of my favorite aspects of the game was getting to meet all of these people. And like we were talking about earlier, just like that camaraderie that you have. I think like two of my favorite parts of the game were the 2 nights that we had when it's just like miserable and cold and it was raining the first night, but we're all like up all night just joking and laughing. And I think that's where like a lot of the closest bonds were formed. So yeah, when we did get that chance after we do, like after the final tribal, and then they have all the audience leave and it's just like the pre-jury people and the final 3 and the jury. And it's the first time we all get to talk. I had like, I think 5 people from my tribe all come up to me and they were like, do you hate us? And I was like, no, guys.
Yes. Yes, I do. Kick rocks.
I was like, I got over that really quickly. Don't worry. And they were like, I felt so bad. We had been winning the whole day and it didn't feel right that we had to vote you out. And I was like, no, guys, like I got over it pretty quickly. You're fine. So it definitely, the circumstances that the game puts you in, it forces you to get really close with these people real fast.
And it forces some hard decisions that you never really think that you would put yourself into, right? Like you're like, at least for me, I'm like, why would I ever put myself in a situation where I feel like I'm about to hurt somebody's feelings? But here we are for a love of a game and the strategy. Megan, I felt like your vote out at this point came from people, like it was almost more intense for you because you had been in this 5 for so long. And I think, at least from outside looking in, it looked like you were higher on the totem pole than where you were. How was it for you talking to these players after and being like,
yeah,
do we hate them? Do you want me to write mean things?
No, I love everybody from Fala. Actually, I think everyone said it. That was a great tribe. We had a great vibe and really loved spending time with everybody. I think the thing that was surprising to me was just like how much respect everyone has for this game of Survivor. Like I had never watched an episode of Survivor before the pandemic started. So I watched like 30 seasons in like 6 to 12 months. It was super fast. And so I was kind of coming into it maybe not having some of the longevity of the respect that people had for this game and that they've wanted to do this for so long. And so I feel like when you get in a group of people where you all kind of feel that way, it's easy to let the game go, just because, everyone wants to make it as far as they can in the game, and that's Survivor. So you're not going to hold something against someone in the game, especially about voting. Like if someone had actually, done something mean to me or in the game at some other point, maybe I would have held it against them. But you got to vote people out to make it to the top. So yeah, I mean, it was definitely painful at the moment, just because I did feel like if that twist hadn't have happened, that I wouldn't have left the game at that moment, which was extremely frustrating. But yeah, I mean, I think it was either me or Mandy at that point, which is what people were thinking. And I did not think that they were going to vote out Mandy. So I'm not surprised that it was me.
So here's just a testament to how strong this tribe was. Literally lifting people off their back in order to do this challenge. What is going on here? I don't remember this challenge.
This is when we learned that Mandy has the steadiest hands of any person on Earth. So she's trying to stack all of those blocks to make a tower. And so she volunteered to do that role immediately. She's like, I want to do it. And we were all like, okay. It was amazing because she ended up having to stack like multiple blocks at the same time on top of that tower. It was incredible. But really cool challenge. And also it's very cool to do challenges that are so close to what's done on the actual game. So
that leads me to my next question. We'll go back in. Stephanie, you'll get to tell us about everybody you love. Actually, tell us about now, and then we'll go to challenges. Tell us. Do we hate everyone? Who do we hate?
No. We hate everyone. We hate all of them. No, not at all. I actually, I don't think that not that I know of. Maybe I'm not a part of the group chat. I don't think we have like this group chat that we're all like, communicating with and all that stuff. But again, I think from my perspective, I think that our group, I feel for me personally, I just feel that because we were with the same group and also the same tribe, like I didn't get to reach out and speak to other folks. So yes, we were in the holding area and we could speak to other people, but it wasn't the same. You didn't really get that private one-on-one time with them. That was very challenging. So the connections that I had in the game were just from the same 8 people or seven other people. So out of 23 people, I only was in contact with 7 of them the entire game. So coming out of the game, I mean, this doesn't sound good, but I mean, I just generally am not a person that if you're going to vote me out, and first of all, I kind of saw it coming. I was like, it's going to be me because Landon is safe. So to me, it wasn't a shock. It wasn't a blindside or anything like that. Like I was already like, okay, I guess this is what it is. There's nothing else I can do. We couldn't strategize, so it's not like I could fight for it, right then and there. So to me, there's a picture of me and I'm just like, hey, saying hi to someone or whatnot. Like it was a game. I was good. I was over it. Like it was not, I was over it. Like I was excited about it. And I was excited to speak to people after the game. Like I was totally fine with it. And I wish them all the best. Like I was rooting for all of them to win. I would say that afterwards, like we did have some conversations. Like I know I had a conversation with Jamie right after, with Morgan, and I remember Morgan and I's conversation. It was like the one that I felt like I needed the most because I felt that, man, I wish I would have spoken to her. Like she was like my buddy, like at night we would like hug and like I would keep her warm. I mean, I was like literally for 2 nights, I remember us tending to each other, me tending to her. And I really wanted to speak to her because I just didn't understand. So that's the only kind of, I was like, why didn't you say you wanted to work with me if you really wanted to? She's like, I did, I told you. And I was like, oh, wow. So I realized like there's in the game, you have folks that, some folks really want like validation to say, hey, we're good. And some folks are like, hey, we're good. And that's all you need to know, which I learned that about myself, that I'm maybe a person that seeks a little bit more of that. And if I just get like a thumbs up, that's not enough for me, or like just a quick conversation. I realized about myself. So it helped me. And also Jamie, like me having that conversation with him really did help. And I would say that, check me out tomorrow in a live because you'll see my relationship with Katie and conversations that we have, what transpired afterwards, because apparently I learned within the game that Katie and I were going to play a live reality game in 2 weeks after we played Survivor Challenge. That was a hot tea and a hot mess on its own, and you'll hear my feedback about that tomorrow.
I can't wait to hear that. Somebody tag me there. I think the other part that's a little bit different before we go and talk about these amazing challenges, because I definitely want to hear your take on that. The cool thing about Survivor Challenge here is that there's viewers in the game, but they're not in the game. They're just there. They're watching. They're cheering you on. So like Katie's husband was there, rooting her on. I was out there cheering on for Jake Sparks. Y'all are jerks and voted him out, so he doesn't end up winning. So like we won't even talk about that. But no. I think that the coolest thing that I got to see is I got very close to some of the people who are out there cheering for you, Stephanie. And boy, do you have the biggest and best fan club out there. Like they were literally out in a tornado waiting to make sure you were okay. Unfortunately, but then they were there to be there for like your shoulder to support. And I think that's absolutely fantastic. So talk about that experience, having your friends and loved one there. How was that?
Yeah, I have to say, so these games, like it's not something that my family like knows about and my friends know about it. Hope they're probably, I don't know who's watching this right now, but my family is not really into it. Of they barely watch Survivor. I'm Latina. I grew up in a Spanish household. We did not watch Survivor. I watched telenovelas. Like we weren't, watching Survivor since the age of, 13 or anything like that. So not a lot of people know that I am even into this, or during the pandemic that I took on this hobby, I guess. So the support that I went there by myself to Macomb. I like my husband was in there. You know what I mean? Like I didn't have support, like a support system. Like they knew I was going, but it was like, hey, she's just doing this crazy thing. So having friends that I had connected through the community be there, it really helped. And I would say that they are amazing friends, and I'm sure that you've all seen them there probably. And they were very supportive, and they were that family, that support system for me. That's why I think when I got voted out, I was like, hey, like that. I was very excited. So you get to meet a lot of people in these games, and I think I had that opportunity. I'm very grateful for it because, as I mentioned, it's not like I have that huge support system, for my family. Even though they do support me, but they're just not supporting me. They don't understand like what the game entails. So it was nice.
It's just fun to see. It's fun as a fan. In the future, if you're ever in the area, even if you're not playing Survivor Challenge, come out there, volunteer, come watch the game. It's an experience that you will. I've always said I'm not a Survivor fan. I'm a Big Brother fan. But being out there and watching these challenges, which is what we're gonna kind of go into this next part. These challenges and just the experience and being over there is so fantastic, and they are so much like what you see on TV in a smaller, because it is a backyard. This literally is somebody's house. This is their the owner of the house. I forget her name. She was like 500 years pregnant. She was ready to give a baby. But they love the game so much, and they love this community so much that they have all of these people out there at their house on this large property. So if you ever get a chance, come in and watch it. I don't think you will regret it. But these challenges, we're a little bit over time already, so sorry, ladies, but you just have so much fun. I should have known a bunch of women talking. We were going to go for a long time. What can I say? These challenges, what was your favorite challenge? What challenge do you never want to see again? Grace, I'll start with you.
That's tough. I think one of my favorite challenges was the one where you had to take the ball and balance it and walk around, and then people walked across the balance beams and then the over under and then put it into the ball maze. Just because that ball maze is one of those iconic Survivor challenges. And like me and my whole family, huge Survivor fans. Like the first season started before I was born. I was like raised watching Survivor and it's a huge thing for my whole family. So seeing that as like such an iconic challenge, getting to do it in person was cool. And I just like the twist that they did on that, where it was like you do the balancing aspect before it. So that was probably one of my favorite challenges. I don't know about least favorite. Honestly, probably that first one. Like Wednesday night, just because it was so chaotic, and I ended up running 4 laps around the lake, and I'm not a runner. So I was like huffing and puffing on lap 2, and I was like, is this what the whole game is going to be? So that one would probably be my least favorite. I was fortunate enough to get to sit out of the food eating one, so truly dodged a bullet there. I got to sit with Jake Sparks and just hang out and watch that challenge play out, which was lovely. But yeah, that would probably be favorite and least favorite.
Jake also says, sitting next to Grace on the sit-up bench before the eating challenge is a moment I will always remember.
Yes, just the two of us and Benji. And like, you feel so bad just being like, come on, guys, you got this. Like, you're not helping them at all. But we were so like, we will do whatever you guys want in the next challenge, because they all felt so sick after. And we're like, sorry, guys, but you did great.
Oh, it was hard to watch.
It was.
Stephanie, what about you? What was your favorite? What challenge do you not want to participate in again? You don't want to see it?
I don't want to see any more ponds. Like I don't want any more ponds. I don't want to swim. Like I have a pool in my house. Like I don't even go in there that much. So like I just don't.
That's like half the challenges.
Yes, like let's skip that. Fast forward. But I'm not a fan. I don't mind swimming, but it was just like I don't know if I could do this. It was too long. It was too long for me. And then I thought to myself, I said, wait a minute, did they ask me if I can swim? That's what I said. I was like, did they ask me this? But I would say one of my favorite challenges, I there at the moment, I think I had two. I like the food eating challenge a lot. I've seen it in Survivor, so I thought that was great. In fact, the item that I had to eat was the eggs that were I don't know how they were cooked, but those eggs. And I have to say, like, my first bite of those eggs were delicious. Oh, I mean, oh my God. I was like, yes, like I could eat these eggs all day. Then I took 3 bites and I was like, I'm not hungry anymore. I was like, no. So even though it was my favorite, it was definitely challenging, but I knew I could do it. That was really exciting for me. I actually thought that we were gonna definitely win that, and I loved how Jamie, he did such a great job encouraging everyone to go ahead and motivating us. There was a point in time he was like, motivate me, you got this, you got this, and I was like, bitch, like I know I got this. I just gotta eat it. That's what I was thinking. Like we had, like, it was such a good time, and he was such a motivation for me and also for like Landon at that moment. And like Landon roughed it up. Like he really ate those things. It was like he did an amazing job, and I'm so proud of him at that moment for doing that for us. That I even thought, I was like, I would eat Katie's squid. We wanted to win. We wanted to win. So it was
And
a
then
good
you
challenge.
voted his ass out. Bye-bye.
Yeah,
Thanks for being so supportive. We didn't
yeah,
win. You should have been
that
a little better. No.
yeah, that happened. No, he was great. But yeah, no, I honestly, I was like, I don't know if we could come back from this. I don't even know. I have no idea we could come back from this.
You could have. You could have.
Mhm.
Just Katie not being able to get it down is truly what was kind of the nail in the
Yeah,
coffin for that
really,
one.
it was.
Megan, how about you? What was your favorite? What was your least favorite?
Yeah, so my favorite was definitely the one where we had to like run and go over the hay bale and under the rope and then
A good
swim
one.
and then
Yeah.
build a tower. I like those challenges where you have to do many things and it's like a quintessential like physical challenge and then kind of like a puzzle thing at the end. And I was really excited about the physical challenges. I thought I was going to be like one of the faster, stronger people in the game. However, apparently everyone on our season was super fit and fast and strong, which was insane. Like I
Except for
looked
me.
around on day one, I was like, "What is this?" Like, like it was crazy. So that was my favorite challenge. And then my least favorite was definitely the one where you have to hold the idol on the little like plate thing. I think Jamie mentioned this when he was talking to you guys. I was terrible at that challenge. Like I cannot do that at all. So I was not excited about that challenge. I mean, like just because I was bad at it, not for any other reason. But yeah, I mean, all the challenges were so much fun. The coolest thing I think was like watching Mandy win the challenge when she won individual immunity with where you have to hold the rod in the two like plates. That was incredible. I wish I would have gotten to compete in some of those individual immunity challenges.
Yeah, it was cool. We got to see it at the end of it to see like how, and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't even
Yeah.
know. Like it looks so easy at first, right? And then you put into all the elements that you're going through, and you're like, no, it's probably not as easy as we're all talking. We're a bunch of
It's
keyboard
heavy.
warriors over here.
It's so heavy
It
that rod.
is
Yeah.
it is much heavier than you look. And I think that's just a testament to anybody who is wanting to play survival challenge or just a live game in general. This is a fantastic one. The part that they don't tell you about a lot is that a lot of the majority of the money is donated to charity. They're raising money for charity and they're donating to all of these charities. It's part of the thing that I think that they should be screaming from the rooftops, but the individuals who put this on are just so humble and what they do. And it's great people and it's a great family. And it's just fantastic to be able to know that you're a part of something that's doing something bigger. But in addition to that, you're also doing something that you love. Because really, to be out here, you have to love the game because you are going through it. And it'll put you through so much. So, before we end this here, I do have 2 more questions for you ladies. I'm going to give you a moment to think about them because I think that there's an important part. So, my first question is, what advice do you give to somebody who wants to play their first live reality game? What's the best piece of advice? And my second question is, what is one thing you learned about yourself that came out of the survival challenge? What's one piece that you learned about yourself? and I'll just give you a moment. And while I'm giving you the second, I'm going to share some fun photos here of this game while you guys have some moments. So you'll get to see some fun little just being a queen over here, telling people what to do.
Oh yeah, I was John. I was mean mugging there. You don't see me walking in like a stunner.
Like a beast. You're like, don't vote me out. Here's another. There's a ton of really good like action shots of you, Stephanie, just being out there like bossing it up.
Awkward with yeah.
Stop. This is always a good one. It just like. Okay. Steph, we'll start with you.
Yeah.
Your best piece of advice, what did you learn about yourself?
So my best piece of advice for anyone who is like me, coming into the game, because I did watch, Survivor Challenge. I watched them on YouTube. I watched episodes, and I really wanted to get myself out there and put myself out there, despite knowing that, like, I said, you know what, this is something that's out of my element. I've never been camping like that. I don't really do these things. And in fact, I know that I'm involved in this community now. And what I've noticed is that I wanted to be a woman and, a woman of color to go into the game and be there and show up and play. And it didn't matter, my size. It didn't matter my height. It didn't matter I was going to put my best foot forward. And you can see that from the moment that I got there to the game, in which we had to swim, and I was like the weakest in that point, to the fact that we went to tribal councils and I fought hard. So my best advice for anyone who's out there at home and watching this is, or and the viewers, is that you can do it. You can do it, and don't ever question yourself about it. Apply for the game. It was fun. It's a great opportunity for you to do something different, do something new. And if you have the opportunity to do so immediately. That's what I would say. That would be my advice. And I think, what was that was that one question. Sorry. I was going to answer your other question, but.
And something you learned about yourself.
Yeah. And what I learned about myself was definitely when you don't be intimidated. Like, I was very intimidated as soon as I got there. The first thing that I did when I got there is that I looked at everyone and I said, oh, there's not a lot of people that look like me. Immediately, I said, there's not a lot of people who look like me. There's not a lot of people that that seem right off the surface that they from the same background as me. And that was very intimidating for me. And I knew that I had to definitely make connections, strong connections, and I had to work my way in there somehow, because I had to make connections with these folks if I wanted to be successful. And I had to dig deep because I felt at that moment, at that initial moment, wow, I think there's not too many of me. So therefore, I have to get in that mindset, like immediately in the game mindset right away, on how can I build relationships. And I'm sure that's what it was in all of our minds, but we have a tendency to look for people that look like us, and that, maybe that they're the same height as me or weight as me, so we look for these things. And I think that that's something that I learned about myself, that like how to dig deep in situations, even when, you might not be exposed to often, because I've lived in New York City, I lived in other areas, so it's not often that I'm, that I expose myself like that. So, and I did, and I'm happy for it, and it was a great experience.
It's actually a Freudian theory that people believe. Have you ever seen somebody who looks like they're dating themselves? When you're like, wow, you guys look a lot alike and you're a couple. It's because people see them best selves first. So you're attracted to people who look like you. You're attracted to people who, and so it's a very common thing. And I just want to say, you did do that thing. Like, you didn't hold it back. I think you should be very proud of yourself, and you're not alone in those feelings, even though we don't talk about them a lot. Kay was saying here, he felt the similar way. And it just is a testament to, one, go out and try new things, but I think it's a testament to you and how strong you are. And I think that you need to give yourself just a little more credit on that aspect, because you did do fantastic. And you're right, there weren't a lot of people who looked like you, but you didn't let that change anything. And
For
so
sure.
good for you for not holding back on that. And we'll move it over to Megan. Megan, what about you? What's your one piece of advice, something you learned about yourself?
Yeah, I think my one piece of advice for new players is play hard and try to take risks. I think my biggest regret about my game is that I don't feel like I took as many risks as I should have, and I didn't step up as much to like be in leading roles and challenges that I kind of wanted to be in. But I was just a little bit like, I don't know, these people all seem more experienced than me. Maybe I'm just going to sit back and let them do it. So I think my one piece of advice would be like, you get one opportunity to play, just like play hard, like take risks. So that would be my advice. I think what I learned about myself, I think I learned that I'm a lot more resilient than I thought, I guess. I remember thinking on the first night when it was like raining and we were laying on the ground, like I was like, is no one gonna quit this game right now? Like, this is not fun. And like, why are there 24 people out here like just like laying on the ground in the rain and the cold right now? And I think you just realize, like, going into the game, I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna do with no food and no sleep. Like, I've never been in that situation before. But I think you just realize, like, hour by hour, you can kind of get through a lot more than you think you can, which is kind of an empowering feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. Just again, it's just having a little more self-belief, like just believing in yourself a little bit. And I think we can accomplish a lot more if we just put away a little bit of that self-doubt. Grace, and saving the best for last here, what's your advice?
I would say first piece of advice, just go ahead and apply. Like, I would recommend this to anyone and everyone. It was like definitely an experience I will never forget. And I absolutely love like this community that I'm a part of now. It was just an unforgettable experience being out there. And I love all the people that like I've met from doing it. And I know so many of us have talked about since then that now we get to be a part of this community of like other survivor geeks, because we're like, we don't have any people like this in like our lives at home. So we're like, there's other people like us out there that we get to just like geek out with. So definitely recommend it to everyone. And I would say kind of similar to Megan, just don't be afraid to like play hard from the start. That's one thing that I would say that like I was a little more reserved and I played a lot more like hesitant just because it was all so new and I was afraid to like go too hard. But this game is so fast paced that like you don't really get a lot of time to like come up and catch your breath. It is like go hard from the start. So don't be afraid to go out, make alliances, find idols, like just go, because it is a once in a lifetime opportunity. So definitely like go hard when you have the chance.
And wear long socks.
The socks are key.
Socks. Make sure to, treat your clothes with the mosquito repellent and the tick stuff. I mean, practical things like bring.
I made sure at night when I was sleeping, every inch of me was covered. I had my socks pulled over my leggings. I had my hood up, my buff around my face, like everything's covered.
What you don't see is those things, which are definitely challenging.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Would you play again?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. In a heartbeat.
Yes. So if that's not, for the people who are watching, if that's not a testament, these ladies went out on a twist that they had no control over. I don't want to say we're blindsided, because you weren't blindsided. You all had a very good grasp on what was going on in the game and you had an understanding, but you were blindsided by the twist and you were not able to prepare for it. And they still are saying, we were cold, we were miserable, it was hard, but I want to do it again. And I'm telling you, if that's not saying y'all are crazy, I don't know what is. But apply for this game. Applications come out in January, Survival Challenge. It's an amazing experience. I don't think I know of another live reality game that gets you as close to a Survivor experience than this one. The challenges, the production of it, everything that happens. You're going to get to hear a lot more and see a lot more because they do make episodes. So you'll get to see all of their confessionals, all of their inner monologue will start coming out. We'll probably have to do another one of these. So all these things where you're like, oh, I love everyone. We'll see who you really didn't love in a few months. And it'll be a completely different thing. Jake Miller was in the comments and he was a little worried that people would say some negative things here. And so that's not what ends up happening. Right here. Oh Lord, can't wait to see how Grace is dragging my name through the mud. And so I don't know if it was a joke and I just don't know him and it's being funny, but
I think it's a joke. He just likes when people talk about him.
There you go. Sorry. Hi, Jake. So you're going to get to see all of those things in a few months when these episodes come out. And you'll get to see this true experience of the challenge. I want to thank all three of you for being here. I want to thank you for sharing just kind of that more, not so much strategic side of your gameplay, but just more of the experience. If there is anyone who is watching and you have more questions on the experience and you have more questions on live reality games, I guarantee you these women will talk to you about it. These women will share it with you. If you know someone who you think would want to play and they just need somebody to like pick my brain. I haven't played this one, but I've been there. And we'll tell you what we know and what we've experienced and use the tools that we have. I don't want to say I'm a feminist, but I am. Like, I think it's such a derogatory word. That's what it's came. But we need more women playing these games. We need more people who look different than what you see every single day. So if there's anything that'll get you to play or you need any help or you need anything, please reach out. We're here to help. Apply for online games survival challenge. Grace, Megan, Stephanie, thank you so much for joining me today. Do you have anything you want to add?
Nope, that's it. You said it best, Destiny.
Awesome.
Yeah, just thank you to John and everyone who puts on Survival Challenge. It was an incredible experience. So they deserve all the credit for putting on an amazing game.
For sure.
Yes, absolutely.
And thanks, Destiny, for hosting us.
Thanks for having me. So with that, we're going to say goodnight and until next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Goodbye.